I never believed in haunted houses until I inherited one. My name is Michelle, and for most of my 37 years, I've been a skeptic in every room. The one rolling her eyes at ghost stories, the one explaining away creaking floorboards and flickering lights with logic and reason. But some houses don't care what you believe. Some houses have their own truths, and they'll make you listen whether you want or not. It started 3 months after Aunt Clara died. I hadn't seen her in 15 years. Not since that awful Thanksgiving when she'd shown up drunk to my parent house and accused my mother of stealing her inheritance. There had been shouting, tears, a thrown wine glass. After that, Clara became a cautionary tale in our family, a name mentioned only in hushed tones and warnings about what happens when you let bitterness consume you. So when the lawyer called to tell me she'd left me everything, I was stunned. Not just surprised, genuinely confused. Why me? Why not my mother, her own sister? The lawyer couldn't say. He just handed me the keys to a house in rural Vermont and told me the property had been paid off decades ago. No mortgage, no debt, just a house, waiting. I should have known then that something was wrong. Should have questioned why my story suddenly included a free house from an estranged aunt who barely acknowledged my existence. But I was broke, fresh out of a relationship, and sleeping on my friend Rebecca's couch in Boston. A house, any house, felt like salvation. The drive up took 4 hours. Late October, leaves burning red and gold against a gray sky. The GPS took me down increasingly narrow roads until I was on a dirt path that barely qualified as a driveway. And there it was, a Victorian house, 3 stories tall, painted a faded yellow that might have been cheerful once. The wraparound porch sagged in places and several shutters hung at odd angles. But overall, it was beautiful in that melancholy way old things are. I sat in my car for a long time, just staring. The house stared back. I know how that sounds. Houses don't have eyes, don't have intentions. But I swear I could feel it watching me, taking my measure, deciding something about me that I wasn't privy to. When I finally got out, the silence hit me first. No birds, no wind, no distant traffic. Just silence, so complete it pressed against my eardrums. I climbed the porch steps. They creaked, of course they did, and fumbled with the keys. There were 3 on the ring, 1 modern house key, 1 that looked antique, and 1 small brass key that didn't seem to fit anything. The door swung open before I could turn the lock. Not violently, not like in a movie. It just opened, as if the house had been waiting and decided to let me in. The rational part of my brain said the latch must be broken, but my hands were shaking as I stepped inside. The interior smelled of dust and something else, lavender, maybe, or old perfume. The furniture was covered in white sheets, ghost-like in the dim light, filtering through dirty windows. I found a light switch, flicked it, nothing. Of course, the electricity was probably shut off. I spent that first hour exploring the first floor. A living room with a massive stone fireplace, a kitchen with appliances from the 1950s, a dining room with a table that could seat 12. Everything was neat, organized, preserved like a museum. Aunt Clara might have been troubled, but she'd taken care of this place. The second floor held 4 bedrooms and a bathroom with a clawfoot tub. I chose the smallest bedroom, the one that felt the least personal, and made up the bed with sheets I found in a linen closet. My plan was simple. Spend a week here, assess what needed to be done, then head back to Boston to figure out whether to sell or renovate. That was the plan. Night came fast in Vermont, swallowing the house in darkness, so complete I could barely see my hand in front of my face. I'd found candles in the kitchen, dozens of them, as if Aunt Clara had been preparing for this, and lit them throughout the bedroom. The flickering light made shadows dance on the walls, and I tried not to think about how every shadow looked like it was reaching for something. I was reading on my phone when I heard it, footsteps above me, Slow, deliberate, heel toe, pacing back and forth across what had to be the third floor. I froze, my breath caught in my chest. There was no third floor access that I'd found. No stairs leading up, no attic door. But someone or something was walking up there. The rational explanations came flooding in. Animals in the attic, settling wood, wind playing tricks. But these weren't random noises. These were footsteps with rhythm, with purpose, with the weight of a human body behind them. They paced for 20 minutes, then stopped. I didn't sleep that night. I sat propped against the headboard, every muscle tense, waiting for the footsteps to return. They didn't, but around 3 a.m, I heard something worse. Humming, a woman's voice, soft and melodic, humming a lullaby I almost recognized. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, filling the house like water, and then it stopped as suddenly as it began. When dawn finally crept to the windows, gray and reluctant, I was exhausted but determined. I would find the entrance to the third floor. I would prove to myself that my story wasn't about to become one of those cautionary tales about city girls who go mad in isolated country houses. I searched for 2 hours before I found it. A panel in the second floor hallway ceiling that I'd mistaken for a decorative element. When I stood on a chair and pushed, it gave way easily, revealing a pull-down ladder. My hands were sweating as I climbed. The third floor was one large room, and it was nothing like the rest of the house. Where everything below had been preserved and neat, this room was chaos. Papers everywhere, scattered across the floor, pinned to the walls, stacked in teetering piles, all of them covered in handwriting. Aunt Clara's handwriting, I assumed, though I'd never seen it before. The words were frantic, sometimes huge, sometimes tiny, filling every inch of every page. I picked up the nearest sheet. It read, "She doesn't remember. How can she not remember? I see her face every time I close my eyes, but she doesn't remember." Another, "The house knows. The house always knows. It's been waiting for her to come back." And another, this one that made my blood freeze, "Michelle needs to know the truth. Michelle needs to understand what she did." What I did. I'd never done anything to Aunt Clara. I was 17 the last time I saw her, barely more than a kid. What could I possibly have done that would make her write my name over and over, hundreds of times, across hundreds of pieces of paper? I spent the whole day up there, reading. The papers weren't dated, but they seemed to span years. Early ones talk about love, about a man named David, about plans for a wedding. Then the tone changed. David was pulling away. David was cold. David was seeing someone else. Then she took him. Pretty little Michelle, with her innocent smile. She took everything. But that was impossible. I'd never known anyone named David. I'd never been to Vermont before this week. Whatever delusion Aunt Clara had been living in, it didn't match reality. Unless I found a photograph tucked between 2 pages, yellow with age. 2 women, maybe 19 or 20, standing in front of this very house. They were laughing, arms around each other, identical in every way except their clothes. Twins. I turned the photo over. Written on the back in faded ink, "Clara and Caroline, summer 1969. Caroline, my grandmother's name. My grandmother who died when I was 3, who I barely remembered. My grandmother who would have been around that age in 1969. But my mother never mentioned she and Clara were twins. Never mentioned they'd lived here together. Never mentioned anything about the time before I was born. The story I'd been told about my family suddenly felt full of holes. I took the photo downstairs and called my mother. She answered on the 4th ring, voice tight the way it always was when she was busy and didn't want to be interrupted. "Michelle, is everything okay?" Mom, did you know Aunt Clara and Grandma Caroline were twins? Silence. Long enough that I checked to see if the call had dropped. Mom, where are you? Her voice had changed, gone sharp. At Clara's house. In Vermont. I'm settling the estate. You need to leave. Right now. Pack your things and leave. What? Why? Because that house is poison, Michelle. It's always been poison. My mother went mad there, and Clara followed her right over the edge. I won't lose you too. Mom, you're not making sense. What happened there? I can't. Her voice cracked. I've spent my whole life trying to forget. Please, just trust me and leave. But I couldn't. Not now. Not when I was so close to understanding. Tell me about David. The sound she made was half sob, half laugh. Of course. Of course it's about him. It's always been about him. She told me then, finally, about how Caroline and Clara had both loved the same man, a local boy named David Reeves, about how Caroline had won his heart and married him, about how Clara had stayed in the house while they built a life together, about how Clara's resentment had curdled into something darker, about how David had disappeared one winter night in 1970, walking to the store and never coming back. His car was found abandoned on a back road, no sign of foul play, no body ever recovered. He was 23 years old. About how Caroline had retreated to the house to grieve with her sister, about how she'd started to change, started to become paranoid and strange, about how she'd begun claiming David was still there in the house, waiting for her, about how she'd hanged herself from the third-floor rafters when my mother was just 5 years old. Clara found her, my mother whispered. And instead of leaving, instead of selling that cursed place, she stayed. She lived there for the next 50 years, alone, talking to ghosts. Mom, I said carefully, Clara's paper's up here. She talks about me. She says I did something. She says I took David from her. That's insane. You weren't even born. I know, but what if she thought I was Caroline? We look alike, don't we? I've seen pictures. Very alike, my mother admitted, especially at your age. You have her face, her voice. God, Michelle, you have to leave. Whatever Clara believed, whatever she thought she saw. I'll leave tomorrow. I lied, first thing. But I wasn't going anywhere. Not until I understood. That night, I returned to the third floor with every candle I could find. I read through more papers, looking for patterns, for truth hidden in the madness. And I found in a diary entry dated 1970, written in different handwriting, neater, more controlled. Caroline's, maybe. I know what Clara did. I know she killed David, drove him off that road herself in a jealous rage. She's been pretending to help me grieve, but I see the truth in her eyes. She's glad he's gone. She thinks now we can go back to how things were, just the two of us in this house like when we were girls. But I can't forgive her. I'll never forgive her. This house knows what she did. The walls remember. And someday, someone will make her answer for it. My hands were shaking. Was this real? Was this Caroline's final testimony, or more delusion? The footsteps started again above me, except I was on the third floor. There was nothing above me but roof. I looked up slowly. The attic panel I climbed through was closed. I hadn't closed it. Caroline, the name fell out of my mouth before I could stop it. The footsteps stopped. Then the humming began, that same lullaby, but louder now, coming from all around me. And beneath it, another sound, breathing, heavy, ragged breathing like someone who'd been running. I'm not Caroline, I said to the empty room, to the house, to whatever was listening. I'm Michelle. I'm her granddaughter. I don't know what happened here, but I'm not her. The humming stopped. In the silence that followed, I heard my own voice, tiny and far away, saying, "But I look like her, don't I?" I sound like her. To you, I might as well be her. I wasn't the one who'd spoken. The voice came from behind me. I spun around, and there she was, Aunt Clara, translucent in the candlelight, wearing the same dress from the photograph, young again, 20 years old and beautiful. "You came back," she said, and she was crying. "After all these years, you finally came back to me. I'm not. Don't lie." Her voice rose, and the candles flickered violently. "You took him from me. You knew I loved him. You knew he was supposed to be mine, but you couldn't stand to see me happy. You always had to have everything, Caroline. Always." I backed toward the attic opening. David's death wasn't Caroline's fault. It was an accident. Accident. She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. There was no accident. I made sure of it. I followed him that night, ran him off the road, watched his car flip into the ravine. He was going to leave with you, going to take you away from me. I couldn't allow that. And when you came crawling back here to mourn him, when you realized you'd never leave this house, never leave me, that was supposed to be the end of the story. We were supposed to be happy again. But Caroline found out. She snooped through my things, read my journal. She confronted me, threatened to go to the police. So I had to show her what happens when you betray family. I made it look like suicide. Everyone believed it. Grief-stricken widow. Couldn't go on without her husband. No one suspected. The temperature in the room had dropped. I could see my breath. You killed them both. I did what I had to do. Clara moved closer, and I realized I could see through her to the wall beyond. But then you left me anyway. Your spirit left, went into your daughter, and she kept you from me. Moved away, changed your name, pretended I didn't exist. But I knew you'd come back eventually. The house knew. We've been waiting, Caroline. We've been waiting for you to remember who you really are. I'm not her, I said again, but my voice was shaking. I'm Michelle. Caroline was my grandmother. She's gone. No, Clara was directly in front of me now. You're here. You came back. And this time you'll stay. She reached for me. I don't remember much of what happened next. I remember falling backwards through the attic opening. Remember landing hard on the second-floor hallway. Remember scrambling down the stairs as the house came alive around me. Doors slamming, windows rattling, that humming rising to a shriek that filled my skull. I remember grabbing my phone and my keys and running for the front door. Remember it wouldn't open, wouldn't budge no matter how hard I yanked. I remember the small brass key, the one that didn't fit anything, except it did fit something. In my panic, my rational mind must have connected what my conscious thoughts hadn't. It fit the front door. The original lock, the one from 1969, still there under the modern deadbolt. When I turned it, the door opened immediately. I fell out onto the porch, gulping air, and looked back. In the window of the third floor, two figures stood watching me. Clara, young and smiling, and next to her, another woman who wore my face, or I wore hers, looking out with empty eyes. I ran to my car and drove. I didn't stop driving until I was back in Boston, back on Rebecca's couch, back in the world of traffic and noise and blessed normalcy. It's been 3 weeks now. I haven't told anyone the full story, haven't told anyone about Clara's confession or the figure in the window or what I learned about my family's past. My mother was right. Some stories are better left forgotten, buried, locked away like that third-floor room. I hired a lawyer to handle the estate remotely. The house is up for sale, though I'm not optimistic. Who would buy a place like that? Who would want to? But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if Caroline really did hang herself, or if Clara was lying about that too. I wonder if the figure I saw in the window was really my grandmother's ghost, or if it was something else. Something the house created from Clara's guilt and madness and 50 years of isolation. I wonder my story ends here, or the house is still waiting. Last night, I could have sworn I heard humming in my dream, that same lullaby. And when I woke, there was a smell in the air, faint, barely there, of lavender and old perfume. I'm moving to California next week, as far from Vermont as I can get while still staying in the continental United States. Rebecca says I'm running away, and maybe I am. But some houses have long memories, and some families carry darkness in their blood. I just hope I'm fast enough. I hope the story I'm writing for myself now, the one about starting over, about leaving the past behind, is stronger than the one that house wants me to live. But if I'm honest, if I'm really honest, there's a part of me that wonders, what if Clara was right? What if I'm not just Michelle, but something more, someone more? What if my story has been unfolding for longer than I thought, across more lives than just this one? I look in the mirror sometimes and search my face for her, for Caroline, for the grandmother I never knew. I try to see where I end and she begins. And I can't help but think that maybe the house didn't trap her spirit at all. Maybe it let her go. Maybe it let her go so she could come back as me, so she could live again, so she could finally escape the story Clara wrote for them both. Or maybe I'm going mad too, and that's how this story ends for everyone who gets too close to that yellow house in Vermont. I don't know anymore. All I know is that tomorrow I'm boarding a plane to Los Angeles. I'm changing my number. I'm starting over. And if you're ever driving through Vermont and you see a yellow Victorian house on a dirt road, all alone with a for sale sign out front, keep driving. Don't stop. Don't look too long. Don't wonder about the women who live there, or the man they both loved, or the secrets the house keeps in its walls. Because some stories don't want to stay buried, and some houses never let you leave.